the shit show that is this world.
What is the shit show of the world today, Rose? Wait.
Oh, God.
Hi, and welcome to the SaVeg podcast.
I'm Rose, also known as Cheap Lazy Vegan on YouTube.
And I'm Daniel, one of your favorite guest stars on Cheap Lazy Vegan's YouTube channel.
We're two friends who love to talk about the latest trending topics.
So get comfortable and join us while we give our SaVeg take on just about everything.
You are currently listening to the previous episode of this podcast, but if you would like to listen to this week's episode and get some exclusive content, go over to patreon.com/thesavagepodcast.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, guys.
Welcome back.
Seriously, if you could only hear the conversations that go on right before we hit record.
Maybe I'll keep that one in the beginning. You know, the beginning right before it goes into music?
No, Daniel, no.
No. Speaking of which, you know, why Rose and
Speaking of NAR,
why
where have you been, Daniel, for the last week?
Well, not New Zealand.
Not New Zealand.
No.
Not where I'm from.
No. So basically, one of my my buttons are coming undone on my shirt.
Daniel's dressed in a very lovely floral dressing shirt.
Dressing shirt.
What do you call this?
Dress shirt?
Dress shirt.
I didn't know. I've never heard it called a dressing shirt before, but okay, we're gonna go with it. No. So basically, one of my really good friends that I met in London, she moved to Australia while we were still in London at the same company, and she transferred there, and then met this guy in Australia and fell in love.
We're telling the whole love story.
Mm-hmm. And now they'd be married. So I got invited to the wedding. I went, and it was amazing. I had such a good time.
Yeah.
But there were some interesting things about Australia.
Okay. Any Aussie listeners, comment below if you're watching on YouTube.
So I was in Sydney, guys. First of all, y'all are so lucky in Sydney. The vegan food scene.
Oh my God.
Out of this world.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
It actually was so good. So I went to this one place I went for two kind of like vegan brunches because I love.
Right. You love a brunch.
I love a brunch.
Because you be a basic bitch.
Exactly. I'm a basic white girl. Living true to my spirit animal of a 16-year-old girl. I love to go for brunch. So guys, that's the way to my heart. If we ever meet up, just take me for brunch and I'll love you forever.
Was it a boozy brunch?
Well, I did a boozy brunch as well.
I love a boozy brunch.
Yeah, we did a bottomless brunch on Sunday. So that was really fun. But no, I went to a couple really good places. One of them was called Oh My Goodness or something, or Oh My Something.
Okay.
And it was like a vegan bakery, and they had like literally they had this huge counter which you walk by, and it has like croissants and like all kinds of stuff. And then I got like a breakfast. It was like a breakfast burrito wrap, but it had like fake ham and it had like just egg in there. And like honestly, they made it so good. There was like some vegan mayo and some other sauce sensation. And then I had a chocolate hazelnut croissant.
Oh, sounds so good.
And it was delightful. There was a couple other restaurants. But anyway, overall, the vegan food scene in Sydney
is like incredible.
It's amazing. Right. Like it's so good.
Right.
So I'm very envious.
Oh, like of people living there? Yeah.
But there were some weird things. So I stayed in Bondi, and it's like a beach area.
Yeah. And it's like famous. I've heard of it.
Yeah, very famous. It's like super popular. So I stayed there. That's where my close to where my friend lives. And while I was there, first of all, I have never felt more self-conscious in my life.
Oh my God.
But to be fair, I feel like it's a lifestyle there. Like everybody, well, at least everybody at the beach was like ridiculously in shape. Like to the point where it's like, because I'm like not a big guy. Like I'm like a regular average Joe, you know?
Right. But you felt like,
oh my God, I felt like I was like fucking on the Biggest Loser, and I needed to lose like 700 pounds. So I was like, holy shit, these people are in shape. And the weird thing is there, it's like, I feel it is part of a lifestyle thing. Like people are awake super early. Like everybody gets up at like 5 to go to the gym. Like it's like
they're like very intense.
Yeah, they get up super early. I think part of that might be like because it gets hot during the day and stuff, so maybe it's easier to work out in the morning. Sense. But also everything like kind of, it doesn't know that it closes earlier, but I just felt like overall like nobody's out partying late. Like it seems like for example, there's a rule, I think it was in Sydney, where it's like after 9 p.m. they're not technically allowed to like serve just like regular shots. They have to like be like watered down or like with an ice cube or something random. Okay. So it's like and even like for weddings and stuff, a lot of them finish, like the wedding I went to, the venue closed at 11. So like,
you have to finish at 11?
I think a lot of them finish 11 or 12 unless they're on like a private property. Yeah. So
is that specific to Sydney or is it all over Australia?
I don't know. I'm not sure. It might be just a Sydney thing, but I did feel
Aussies, please comment below.
Yeah, comment below. Let me know if it's the same in like the other cities and stuff. I just felt like overall the trend was people don't really seem to go out late. They still drink and stuff and like will party during the evening, but like they shut it down quite early.
Interesting.
People go to bed early and they get up fucking early and go to the gym.
Like a lot of people get up early.
I feel like at least maybe that's just the
How
Bondi
do you know?
life.
Because you weren't up at 5 a.m.
Well, I wasn't, but I heard like other people that got up, they'd be like, you'd get up at like, I got up some days
normal.
early. Yeah.
Right.
And
okay.
like my friend met her partner at like a 4:40 a.m. run club.
I don't even understand. Like 4:40 is just because you'd have to get up at like 4.
Yeah.
For that to happen.
Yeah.
Like what time do they sleep?
But it's a thing. One of the individuals who I know from London, they were
one of the individuals.
You know, that sounded really weird. One of my friends from London was also there, and they live in Perth.
Right.
And they were saying it's like the same. Like the busiest gym class there is like at 5 a.m.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's like I feel like it's a nationwide thing. But guys in Australia, comment.
What other weird things did you notice?
This was cool. Actually, this is one thing where I'm like, I think Australia has it right, but I don't know if it's like if it's an infringement on rights. Because I mentioned it to my parents when I got back, and they were like, well, and I'll tell you what it is.
Okay, what is it?
So in Australia, did you know that it is mandatory for everybody to vote?
Oh, I did not know this.
And it's mandatory to a sense that if you don't vote, you get fined.
How much is the fine?
It's not a lot. I think it's like $50.
That's very interesting.
But it's enough of an incentive that when they do like referendums and votes, they get like a well over 90% turnout.
Right, because I don't want to pay $50.
Exactly. Nobody really does. Like even if you have the money, you're kind of like, oh, it's annoying. Like I'll just vote, you know? So it's a really, like their latest referendum, I think the turnout was like 97%.
That is very
station.
Interesting.
So I mentioned to my parents, I was like, this is something that like Canada, because Canada historically, well, like at least lately, it's been pretty low turnout.
Yeah, nobody cares here.
No, and I even looked up one of the biggest referendums in the UK, which was the Brexit vote.
Right.
Guess what? I saw this stat. I can't remember the exact number, but roughly, guess what percentage of the population on one of the biggest referendums we could say like globally for Brexit. Yeah. Guess what the turnout was? It was pretty good. It was better than what I thought it would be, but it was nowhere near 97%.
Like, I almost want to say like less than 50.
No, it was more than 50.
Oh, okay. 65.
It was 75.
75. So, that's actually better than I would imagine.
I think it was around 75 or it was around that kind of mark, which is still pretty good.
High.
But that's still 25%.
Right.
That's a quarter. 1 in 4 people didn't vote.
Right.
When you think of it like that, you're like, oh, like, whereas with this with the way Australia does it is like basically everybody votes. So you actually get a more accurate representation of like what people want. And with Brexit, maybe if the other 25% had voted, we might have a different result.
Right.
Because it was so close. It was 49-51.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe that would have turned the tides, because we're talking 25% of a 60 million population. That's a lot of people.
That is a lot of people. So then do you think that the mandatory vote is a good thing?
Yes, I personally think it is.
Interesting.
I think, you know, it is part of a democracy. We are in a democracy. And I've told this to my parents. I said, this is a great way to encourage people, because I think there's a lot of people, generally more like on the youth side or that kind of stuff.
Younger people don't vote.
Exactly. That are kind of like, well, my vote doesn't count. It doesn't make a difference. I don't care. Blah, 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 blah. Now, granted, if they're forced to vote, they might still not care. But there's going to be a percentage of people within that forced demographic
right,
that are going to be like, well, actually, okay, I have to vote. Let me do a little bit more research. Let me look into this more. And it just gets people more engaged.
Interesting.
I feel like.
Interesting.
But my parents.
So do you think that, I mean, I don't know if you know this, you spent a week there, but was it a week, 10 days?
It was like, yeah, pretty
about
much,
a week.
Yeah, a week.
So do you think that people there are a little bit more aware of the politics, or do you think, because my concern would be, I'm kind of torn on this one. I'm actually not sure how I feel.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, that's a first. Usually I have opinions about everything.
God damn, Rose, without an opinion? You feeling okay?
So,
you got a fever, Rose? You feeling okay?
I'm like, okay, so this is my kind of concern is,
okay,
sure, like you're saying, you know, it might force people to do more research, but are they really going to, or are they just going to pick whatever?
Yeah.
And like, are they really making informed decisions if they're just being forced to vote just because they don't want to pay like a $50 fee?
Right. But how many people do you think vote right now, Rose, that don't even have,
well, I do feel like, I mean, you're right. I don't think necessarily the people that are voting know everything, but I think if you are making the active decision to vote, there's a higher chance that you know at least a little bit something about what you stand for.
True, because you're actively like looking into it. But
like otherwise, like I don't know what the voting turnout in Canada is, but like I know for a fact that people that vote know at least a little more than maybe the average person that doesn't care at all. But I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I do think I do see what you're saying though. Like I do think important for people to vote. But I think the other side is that some people just feel like, and I kind of agree, that there is no right vote. I don't like any of it, basically. Like, if I was in the US, I probably would choose not to vote.
Yeah.
Because I hate everybody. Like, I hate the Democratic Party. I hate the Republican Party. I mean, I probably would vote Democratic just because I feel like you have to pick lesser of two evils. But some people...
You have to pick a side, Rose, they would say.
But it's like, it doesn't... I feel like it's a lie that we live in this democracy. You know, oh my God, we're going to get into some... But anyway...
God damn, democracy is a lie.
I mean, if your choice is one old guy that has all kinds of stupid interests that I don't like, one old guy that wants to do war and the other old guy that wants to do war, but in a slightly different way, it's like, these are not choices. And then the other choices, like, they're not going to become president. So it's kind of like, do we even have a choice?
This is true.
You know?
Picking the lesser of two evils.
Yeah. And I feel like I can understand, like, I think for a long time I was like, we should all vote. I mean, I still believe we should vote.
Yeah.
But I do think I understand people's like frustration with this whole system.
But by not voting, even still, because the thing is, you mentioned like there's going to be parties that maybe don't get elected and stuff, right? But like by not voting, like the results still, there's going to be some result either way. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So like, even if you're like, I don't want to pick I don't want to pick, but maybe that's the case. Maybe more people start voting for some of the like, smaller parties, you know what I mean?
Right.
And that could be a shift or whatever, right? Like it just means,
I know,
you're
you're more optimistic than I am.
It's not that I'm optimistic. I just think it's like, it's important. And I just think, I wouldn't think it was such an issue if like we didn't have, and I don't know what the stats are, what it is in Canada, UK, US, like, but like the voting in the US, like what the voting turnout is. Cause I don't think it's very high.
It's not very high.
Like the referendum for
low.
Brexit was like 75%,
right.
but that was like a huge thing.
Right.
And like I could probably pull it up. Let's see right now.
Let's see right now. Okay. It's over 50,
That surprises me.
But it has become lower, I think, in the recent years, it seems. So at this point, from what we can see, it's 62.6% in Canada in 2021. So it is over 50 of eligible voters.
That actually surprised me. It's higher than I thought, but still, 62%, guys. When you think of that, that means like there's a huge amount of the population that's not voting.
Right. I think also there should be votes on, like, for example, like the way that they had Brexit vote.
Yeah.
There should be more votes like that in terms of policies.
Yeah.
Because again, it's like, I don't really give a shit. Because especially in the States, I feel like a lot of the election process is very much like, who is more charismatic? Who puts on a better show?
Yeah.
Like, who debates better, and like they all lie. All these politicians are just a bunch of liars. They're not going to always tell you the truth. They're going to just say things that make them look good.
Yeah.
So
can you imagine if they did a referendum on gun legislation?
This is what I mean. It's like, no matter who you vote for, the gun shit's never going to disappear in the States. You're probably not going to get free healthcare or public healthcare. So it's kind of like, I understand people's frustration. It's like, no matter who you vote for, what's it going to change?
Exactly.
Like, people voted for Obama, and he said he was going to do all this crazy shit.
Didn't he bring in like Obamacare though? Like he brought in a little bit.
He did something.
So he tried to. I feel like he worked with some of the stuff that he had.
But I think his campaign, and I don't think that it's a bad thing that he won. Obviously, it was a good thing.
Yeah.
But I think he promised a lot more than he could deliver.
Yeah, but that's all politicians, I feel like. And this is
I hate it all.
This is another argument that I always have, and we've talked about this many times on the podcast, but like what really bothers me is I feel like I understand that when you're running to be elected, there's certain things that you cannot say with concrete certainty, right? So for example, in terms of like budgets, in terms of like all this stuff, right? But I feel like there should be a allowed variance from what your promises are. So what I mean by that is like, for example, if you say you're going to commit, 50 billion or like 50 million in healthcare, let's say, whatever the number would be. You got that number from somewhere, right? You didn't just pull it out. I'm hoping they're not just pulling it out of thin air.
They pull shit out of their ass all the time.
This is true. So they're saying they're going to commit 50 million of the budget. So they must have seen roughly the budget numbers, right?
Yeah,
so
hopefully.
my argument is, okay, they say they're going to commit 50 million. That is what people base their votes on, right? Because they're like, I love this policy. I want more in healthcare, blah, 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 blah. That's why I voted for this person. But then it turns around and they say, ooh, actually, we can only put 5 million into healthcare, not 50 like I'd originally said. It's 10% of what I said I could even put in there. At that point, we should be able to decide as a society to say, hey, well, hang on a second. I voted for you based on this. And if, obviously there's some gray area. Like maybe if they put in like 45 million instead of 50, it's not such a big deal. But when it's that huge like discrepancy, like the whole Brexit vote was based on this like 150 million a week that we're going to reinvest into the NHS.
Which apparently the NHS is fucked up now.
Exactly. And they still don't have that funding. And after they got voted and it got voted for, they said, oh, actually, we have no evidence to substantiate that number. And it's kind of like we can't support that number basically. And I'm like, well, hang on a second.
So they just lied.
Then that whole vote should be thrown out because it was based on those facts and figures within reason. That's why I think there has to be like parameters. Like, you know, there's certain things where they might say they really want to do a certain policy or XYZ, but then there has to be, maybe there's reasons why they can't, but they need to be very transparent on this stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And that's where I have an issue with politicians. It's like, if you say you're going to commit this or XYZ to this, and you don't do it,
there should be repercussions.
There should be repercussions, 100%. Like if I lie on my job resume and my work finds out, I'm going to get fired.
Yeah.
Like it should be the same. There should be held accountable. They shouldn't just be able to be like lying through their teeth about everything.
I know, but they do, Daniel.
I know.
They control everything. What we gonna do?
I don't know, Roses.
Anyways, anything else weird about Australia?
No, it wasn't that. I just thought it was interesting. So
that is quite interesting.
I like the voting thing. I think that's really cool. I was talking to my Uber driver on the way to the airport and we were having a little friendly debate on it.
Oh, interesting.
And he mentioned, and I thought it was kind of interesting what he said. He was quite a funny character, and he goes, well,
do the Aussie accent, Daniel.
No. He says to me, like, no, he was like,
what did he say, Daniel? What did he say?
He said, what did he say? He was like, oh yeah, he agrees with the policy of mandating the votes.
Yeah.
However, he was like, he feels like it should be optional between the ages of like 18 to 25.
Okay.
Because he said a lot, and again, some young people might disagree, but he said a lot of 18 to 25-year-olds, he's like, think about it, you're in university, you're partying, you don't necessarily always give a fuck about politics.
Right.
That's why it should be optional for them. So they can choose to go to the station if they want, but then after the 25 hits, it's like, now it's mandatory for everybody.
I don't think that makes any sense. If you're going to make it mandatory, you should make it mandatory for...
Well, how come? But though, it made a little bit of sense when he was saying like 18 to 25, because most people generally don't really start really learning or caring that much about politics until they get a little bit older.
Well, I think I think most people don't care, period.
Yeah. But I'm saying, like, think about it. Like 25, maybe now you have a family or you're getting married. You're starting to like actually do things that are, whereas when you're a lot younger, you don't so much. And and it's not saying that those people can't vote. They still can.
Right. But then the problem is also young people generally don't vote. So wouldn't that make more sense to make it mandatory for them to vote?
Well, I think that demographic you're right. It is primarily young people, but I think it's also people under a certain generation. And we're part of that now.
Right.
Like we were the young people, but now we're still the young people. But like,
you mean like just as we get older, voting turnout is going to get lower and lower.
Yes. And we've seen it. It's proven in the stats.
Well, and I think part of it is the fact that we're all just very disappointed with our governments, period.
God damn, this be turning into the
There's a lot
political podcast.
Well, speaking of politics.
Oh, god damn,
we got to cover the shit show that is this world.
What is the shit show of the world today, Russell? Wait.
Oh god. Well, you've been away.
I have. I've been in my little Australian
You've been
bubble
in your Australian bubble
with a hot surfer.
No. Oh my god.
I'm kidding.
Whilst the world is burning down.
Oh god damn.
Oh my god, it's actually so like I honestly
I've seen a lot of like posts, but I just have been very I know this sounds bad, but I've been disengaged with the whole thing.
Right. It's like a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have to talk. The thing is, I kind of wanted to avoid it, but I feel like we need to talk about it.
Okay.
Israel and Palestine. We have to discuss it because I've been like last week I was like in a dark place because there's so much. It's just so sad, everything that's happening. Mm-hmm. And I literally we are witnessing genocide literally happening right now.
Yeah. In
Gaza. So I'm going to kind of go through, you guys, I'm sure if you follow any news at all, at least something's
what's
happening.
going on. Yeah.
You might not know everything. But I'm going to try to, and you can obviously look at different sources. This is not your news source. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm just kind of talking about the basic stuff, general things. So on October 7th, my birthday, this is when it all kicked off. This current situation.
Yeah.
Okay.
The current situation for an ongoing 75-year situation.
Occupation. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. So essentially October 7th, Hamas, which is basically the government of the Gaza Strip. So Gaza is a part of what is called Occupied Palestinian Territories, the OPT, and Gaza is a part of it.
Okay.
So Gaza and West Bank, we actually did a video like doing this, like discussing this kind of topic in a little bit more detail. I think we did it like 2 years ago. And it's the same shit.
I know. Over again.
It's the same shit over and over again, but this time it's like so much worse.
I'll link our previous discussion in the show notes.
Whew. So essentially, Gaza is basically one part of the occupied Palestinian territories. West Bank is a separate part, and then East Jerusalem. So those are supposed to be Palestinian territories. So Gaza, people refer to as an open air prison. Some people call it a concentration camp because a prison requires, prisoners, as in you did something wrong. But really, most of the people in Gaza are just innocent civilians, half of which are children. So basically, Hamas is an elected party technically, but they were elected in like 2006 or something, and there was no election since then.
Okay.
So which is like 17 years ago.
Which is crazy.
So essentially, like, I would argue that this isn't really a democratically elected, government. Anyway, we're gonna get to that. So Hamas did this like very vicious attack. They somehow got through this extreme Israeli surveillance system, the Iron Dome, which, if you don't know, is basically this like extreme security system funded by the US, which basically like stops, I don't even know how they do this, but they like stop rockets coming from Gaza, and it somehow just like blocks it. Like, I don't know how it works. I think it's like, maybe it's like a technology that like shoots the rockets back. I have no idea how it works, but it's called an Iron Dome. And they built it like, I don't know, however many years ago. So this has stopped like so many rockets coming from Gaza. So essentially, like, Israel has been relatively safe thanks to this like Iron Dome. Yeah. And also they have like a very, very intense security system that it's very difficult for anyone to like infiltrate it. So it is a little bit questionable. There are people questioning, and I myself included, how this even happened in the first place, because Hamas has never been able to do such a huge attack. Because they have like very little in terms of resources. They don't have, even half, they don't even have like a fraction of the military power that the Israeli government does. So there's been a lot of talk.
Didn't they say that there was like funding or some support from like some of the Middle Eastern countries to Palestine, and that's why they were able to?
I think that's one of the things that people are saying. Yeah. People are saying that like whatever funding, because like Gaza gets some like, I don't know, humanitarian aid and stuff like that. Yeah. So what people are saying, I don't know how much truth there is to this, but like they're saying that, because they're getting this humanitarian aid or whatever funding, Hamas is taking over that funding and like, using that as like to build weapons and, doing whatever, all kinds of crazy shit. Yeah. So essentially they did this like attack, somehow infiltrated, somehow got through this fucking Iron Dome, and they attacked this music festival. Or they attacked a bunch of people at this music festival and also kidnapped a bunch of people. So I think the numbers are something like 1,400 people were killed, like Israeli citizens were killed. Yeah. And then they, I think, kidnapped like 200 people. So right now they still have hostages. Yeah. Okay. So that's the situation. October 7th, that's when it happened. My fucking birthday. Happy birthday to me. Fucking World War III starting. Yeah. Fantastic. So then Israel's reaction was as follows. They were like, we're going to order a complete siege on Gaza, which is essentially already like, it's already blocked off essentially. Yeah. So it's blocked off by sea on one side, and then Israel on the borders of Israel, and then it's blocked off by Egypt. So Egypt has one of the borders, but that's also blocked. And I think that's because I truly feel like, I think because Israel and US have so much power and control over that area, the Arab nations that are surrounding it are just afraid to do anything to like piss off the Israelis or piss off the US. Yeah. So anyway, I'm not sure exactly what the politics are of that area, but I'm pretty sure it's because of like the power, that the US has. So after that horrific incident by Hamas, which is a war crime, which is like, because they are punishing innocent people, killing innocent civilians, which should never happen. So innocent people died, unfortunately, like 1,400 people, which is like insane. And then they kidnapped a bunch of people. So then Israel government was like, well, now we're going to order a complete siege. We're going to cut off the food, water, electricity, fuel in Gaza Strip. Yeah. So if you don't know, like basically Israel controls a lot of the things. Whatever comes in and out of Gaza is heavily controlled by the Israeli government.
Yeah.
So they basically control the food that goes in, the water, the water supply. They say that 96% of the water in Gaza is basically not fit for human consumption already. Okay. So it's already, they have this like food shortage crisis and water shortage crisis and just like huge unemployment rate. People cannot leave. Okay. Like this is literally like a concentration camp situation.
Yeah.
Right. The prospects are low. They don't like so many people don't have jobs. Like there's just like very little hope in this situation.
For sure.
And now they're like, okay, we're going to cut off all of these, essential supplies. Now remember that all of Gaza is not Hamas, right? Hamas is, maybe the government of Gaza, which some people are saying that is justification enough to like, do all this insane things to the Palestinians. But it's really like, it's not all Hamas. So there are literally like half of them are children. 2 million people in Gaza, half of them are children. And they've said they're going to do all of this crazy stuff, like cut off essential living supplies. So then obviously when that announcement was made by the Israeli government, a lot of people, including myself, were very like, like this is a war crime. And it is a war crime. Like UN has said it. Human rights organizations have said it.
Yeah.
It is a war crime to do collective punishment. Like, again, what Hamas did is also a war crime. But you can't respond with another war crime. So now we're doing war crimes all over the fucking place.
Yeah.
And so not only did they cut off all of this food, water, and all this stuff, but then they started bombing like insane amounts into Gaza. So at this point, the death toll, is the latest report I saw, let me pull it up.
God damn.
Oh, it's so bad, Daniel. Because like all I've been seeing on social media is like this stuff, and it's just been like so depressing.
Making your feed really dark, Roses.
It's really dark, but I also feel like it's important to know this.
No, for sure.
So anyways, the latest reports, over 5,000 Palestinians in Gaza, and I know that's over 1,000 children, have been killed like since this situation has started. 5,000, okay? And over 1,000 children, okay? So today is October 23rd. That number for the Palestinians for sure is going to go up. I think, like, I don't know how many more there will be on the Israeli side. I think the initial thing happened, and then because again, Israeli military is so powerful. I don't think the Hamas people could have done too much more. I don't know exactly though. Okay.
Well, it's like there was a graph that I saw on social media where it shows like over the many
decades,
years, and it showed like the death toll and casualties, injuries, all of that kind of stuff, and it's definitely heavily leaned towards one side.
Exactly. So, and of course, like all of these deaths are awful, and like none of them should have happened. But it's like it is very clear who holds the military power, which is a fact, right? Like U.S. funds Israel like billions of dollars every year in aid, and Israeli military, even though it's such a small country, has one of the most powerful militaries in the world. So, and Hamas is literally just like they're building rockets out of like random shit that they can find in Gaza.
Street,
not that it justifies any of this, but so anyway, I think the thing is I posted this reel on my Instagram and on my TikTok that pissed off a lot of people. And I was speaking a lot there, maybe I should have worded things a little bit differently. But I was like very emotionally charged because this whole thing is just, it's always the same. I feel like it's the same thing every single time. And it's
been going on for like 75
so
years.
Long. And
that's why I'm like, is there any way that we can figure out collectively a solution? Because it's like ridiculous.
The thing is, if we keep doing this back and forth violent situation, it's never going to get fixed.
Exactly.
And Israel likes to say it's because they don't want to negotiate. Now, I don't believe that at all. Okay. Yes, maybe Hamas. Okay, so, I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself. So essentially, first of all, I said in my reel, which I still stand by, that we need to understand like the full context, like we're discussing here. Like it's not just because like the way that the Western media will portray it is A, it's just like a war between two countries. And B, Hamas, anytime it's like an attack by Hamas, it gets a lot more media attention.
It's considered terrorist, right?
Exactly. Then when Israeli government kills Palestinian civilians, which they do consistently over the last few years, like you said, the death tolls are, they speak for themselves. Exactly. If you look at the death tolls, like look up like Palestinian death toll versus Israeli over the decades, and you can see this is like a huge graph for the Palestinians. It's like red. And then you can see like small little graphs on the other side for the Israelis. So I don't see it as Israel defending themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I see it as Israel is, I mean, this is fact. Israel is an occupying power. They have the power. They occupy Palestinians, which is why it's called occupied Palestinian territory, because even in the OPT, which is supposed to be Palestinian land, it's mostly all controlled by Israel, right? Like it's mostly controlled by Israel. And they say that, so like West Bank, which is separate from Gaza, which is, again, an occupied Palestinian territory, there's 3 main areas, right? Area A, B, and C. Area A is supposed to be under Palestinian Authority. Area B is a mixture of Palestinian and Israeli. Area C, which is about 60% of West Bank, is full Israeli control. Yeah. So they occupy this territory, and they say that I've heard that even the Palestinian Authority in this region, they're not really on the Palestinian side. They're kind of like in bed with Israeli soldiers. Right. Okay. So they're kind of like, you know, there's people like this in all kind of circumstances in these situations. So they're not, anyway, like basically no one is looking out for the Palestinians in the West Bank or in Gaza. And oh my God, I feel like there's so much to go through. So basically, so it is an occupation and an occupying force against like people that are being occupied and people that have very little power. So we have a huge military power against people that have very little, you know. So it's not like a war, you know what I mean? So anyways, where was I? So what I want to discuss essentially is that, you know, the reason why I think that context is important is because of that, right? It's like, why did this even begin in the first place? We need to understand why they keep fighting, why they keep, you know, not being able to get along. Why are they bombing each other? Why? It's because one side is being occupied and they're trying to fight for freedom. Now, I will not say that killing innocent civilians is a way to, you know, to get to that at all, because now look what's going on, right? But I will also say that there has been peaceful protests. There has been, like, even in Gaza, there was this thing called the Great March of Return, which of course, like, didn't get much, like, nobody knows about it in the West, I'm sure, where basically Palestinians in Gaza peacefully protested. I think it went on for weeks, where they like went up to the border. Let me find it. It was in 2018 to 2019. So it was there were a series of demonstrations held each Friday in the Gaza Strip near the Gaza-Israel border from March 30th, 2018 until December 27th, 2019. So like it was like a peaceful protest. They were just going there to peacefully protest. And during this time, there were a total of 223 Palestinians killed by Israeli forces. So they have tried to do this in like, you know, a peaceful way, and they still get killed. So it's kind of like, I feel for these people because it's like, what they are trapped. Yeah. Can you imagine being trapped in like a tiny little strip of land? Like it's just unthinkable. And then, so one thing that some people were saying is like, oh, the reason why the conditions in Gaza are so bad is because of Hamas. Because Hamas takes over control of all of these things, which I don't agree with. First of all, why is there even a blockade in the first place? Like, you know, there's a lot of, you know, talk about this. Now, let's assume that is the case, though. Like, let's say that Hamas does control everything and Israel gives them so much opportunity. Rolling my eyes here, but somehow Hamas just takes it all away and like blah, blah, blah. So let's assume that. But then how do you explain West Bank? West Bank has no Hamas authority. Like Hamas is not governing the West Bank. It has very little to do with the West Bank. There might be some Hamas entities in the West Bank, but Hamas is mostly Gaza. But in the West Bank alone, people are killed. First of all, a lot of people are killed. Palestinians over the years, many people have been killed by Israeli authorities. And continuously, like we've discussed in previous episode, basically there are illegal settlers, Israeli settlers living in Palestine, in occupied Palestine. So they're building these Israeli homes on Palestinian land, which is illegal by international law. And they continue to build these homes. To this day, they're continuing to basically, you know, essentially like kick out Palestinians and build Israeli homes, take more Palestinian land, build more. And we're not just talking about little homes here. We're talking about full on like communities, full on buildings, full on like hospitals and just full on infrastructure. And illegally building these homes in Palestine. So this is a continuing occupation. So Palestinians are continuously being like getting their land taken,
pushed out, basically.
Pushed out. So, and in the West Bank, so one thing that is really, really fucked up. So the reason why like Israel is considered an apartheid state, and again, this is not my opinion. This is like a fact. UN, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and even like Israel has like a human rights organization. They all call Israel an apartheid. And this is based on like many, you know, years of research and actually going in and looking at the facts. This is a, you know, like they don't have, but the thing is, we can't listen to either Israelis or like Palestinians because they both have their own like agenda, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at third parties, human rights organizations, they all call this an apartheid.
Exactly. And they would be you know, when you're having any kind of conflict, it's good to have that third party opinion, right? So if a third party's coming in and being like,
if many third parties are coming in.
Exactly. Not just one. It's
including many scholars as well.
Exactly.
So the reason, and the thing is, I was there, like I've seen it. Okay. Like I've seen it firsthand. I went to the West Bank and it's a very different world. Like Tel Aviv is this like really beautiful city. And, you know, and Tel Aviv is technically in like Israel. And it's beautiful and there's nice beaches and food is delicious and everything's fine. And then you go to the West Bank, which is not that far. And it's just like a different world, right? It's like there's roads that Palestinians can't drive on. There's checkpoints. There's so many checkpoints where Palestinians have to wait for hours just to get through the checkpoints. And like, you know, they get searched and all this kind of crazy shit happens.
So bad.
Just very dehumanizing stuff.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing to me, which I think is insane, is water. So I may have mentioned it before in our like the episode we did like a year ago.
Yeah.
Basically, I noticed like when I was in West Bank that like on the Palestinian buildings there were these big black like tanks, big black containers.
Yeah.
And I learned that they were just water like storage containers
for like rain, right?
I don't know exactly. I don't know if they like have to buy. I know they have to buy. Anyway, I don't know exactly where it comes from, but basically Palestinians are forced to like store water because Israel, the government, controls like basically all the water supply, and they just shut off the water for the Palestinians. So I actually read a stat that was like insane. Basically 36% of Palestinians in the West Bank don't have access to running water. No, have access to running water all the time. So that means 60-something% don't have access to running water consistently.
Yeah.
Whereas 100% of Israelis, even those living in those illegal settlements, have access to running water 24/7.
Yeah.
So that's, in my opinion, that's all the evidence I need that it's an apartheid.
Yeah.
Because you're basically literally being like, you're Palestinian, so I'm just going to shut off the water.
Yeah.
And you don't have access to water, even though this is your land.
Yeah.
So anyways, so again, so for those people that are saying, oh, Hamas is the reason why Gaza is in such a bad place, well, how do you explain West Bank?
Yeah.
And, oh my gosh.
Damn, Roses.
So this whole thing is just, so first of all, so people that are saying that, you know, Hamas was elected as a government in 2006. I believe that there wasn't really many options, like we discussed.
Like we discussed earlier.
Exactly.
Lesser of a few evils.
Exactly. So people felt like, I think.
Well, and also in those situations, sorry to cut you off.
No, continue.
But in those situations, I would imagine if I was in that situation, I might pick a more extreme party because I'm feeling like
you have no other option.
I have no other options. What are we going to do? There's nothing else.
Exactly.
We might as well try something that may see if it works.
Exactly. And at that point, I don't even know if people knew, you know, exactly the level of brutality that Hamas would do, or like, you know what I mean? Because they're just electing whoever they think, you know, like we said, like politicians will say whatever, you know, people will elect whatever. And I heard from this guy, actually, if you guys want to learn more about this stuff, there's a guy named Norman Finkelstein, and he's like this like Jewish man that has been like fighting for like Palestinian rights for the last like however many decades. And he said something like, basically, you know, they only had like two choices or something, and it was like either Hamas or Palestinian something authority, where like the one side is corrupt, like we discussed, like might not have Palestinian interests at heart.
Right.
And people felt like Hamas was the only group that had the interests of the Palestinians, which is basically freedom, right? Essentially, like it's not that, like people try to make it seem like Palestinians just want to kill all the Israelis or all the Jews, which is just not true. Like, yes, maybe there might be some people that are extreme that want to do that, which is obviously not good. But I think a lot of people just want freedom.
Yeah.
And
to not have blockades, to not have the government controlling when their running water is.
To have like good quality water when you live in a country with plenty of water sources.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so that's the election of Hamas, whatever. They were elected in 2006. And then some people were just insane. They were saying like, well, they chose Hamas. They wanted this. I'm like, well, first of all, the election was 17 years ago. So, very, very far from a democratic situation.
Well, lots changed in 17 years, guys.
Exactly. Second of all, half the population are children. So did they choose this?
Yeah.
And I remember somebody like sent me a DM and I was saying that I literally said half the population is kids. And they were like, well, their parents chose for them. Are you fucking insane?
Oh my God.
Are you like fucking insane?
People
I was
are crazy
because
like think about the shit that sometimes our parents do.
Exactly.
And it's like we wouldn't have chosen that.
And even if they all chose Hamas, they still don't deserve like death. Like they don't deserve to be killed, right? Like because we pick our governments. Does that mean that we should all be like our governments have done horrible things?
Yeah.
Canadian government included, American government, so many war crimes.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that we should wipe out all the people that voted for like fucking George W. Bush.
Yeah. Or like, yeah, exactly.
Like that argument just makes no sense. It's like, it's so dehumanizing to the Palestinians that live there. It's like, they don't even see them as humans. You know what I mean? Like it's so I can never say
infuriating.
that. Infuriating.
Yes.
I don't know why I can never say that word.
There's another word you can't really say properly either. I can't remember, but there's
like a few words I can't say. So anyways, essentially like, yeah. So Israel government will deny all wrongdoing and they'll say, we're not targeting civilians. We are just trying to take out Hamas.
We're responding to a terrorist attack.
Exactly. Which just really is so intellectually dishonest. And I'm, again, not saying that what Hamas did is justified. But I think if we continue, like, if we can say what Hamas did is not justified and killing innocent civilians is wrong, I don't know why people on that side can't say what this government is doing is not
also
justified. Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're doing it in now extreme numbers. And what I don't understand is like, so they took like, essentially they're trying to like release these hostages, right? That's what they're claiming.
Yeah.
They took like 200 Israeli hostages or something along those lines. They would probably be in Gaza. Would they not? There's nowhere else they could be.
Well, I don't know.
They can't be anywhere else. Like they're trapped. Like they would have taken them to Gaza. Like where else could they be? Because otherwise it's like Egypt is blocked. Otherwise it's Israel. And if they're in Israel, they would have been caught already. 100%. Like there's no way. So the Israeli hostages are probably in Gaza.
Where they're
bombing the living shit out of. So there's some reports, I don't know if it's true, that like some of the Israeli hostages have also died. So I don't actually believe that the Israeli government, like Netanyahu, cares that much about the hostages.
Yeah.
There's actually been reports saying that he knew that this was going to happen, like the attack on October 7th was going to happen like a few days before it actually happened.
Right.
Like he was given a report. And he's also been saying in the past that Hamas is actually, they need to, like, I can't remember the quote. There's actually, like, you need to search this up. But basically, he said in like 2019 or something that Hamas is the best, like government that we can have for Gaza. And we need to prop up Hamas.
He had said that.
He had said this.
Yeah.
Because I believe that they don't want a Palestinian government that's like logical, that wants to be peaceful.
Right.
Because then they will look like the crazy ones.
Yeah.
So they need like a terrorist organization.
Extreme.
They need a militant group to do something insane, like killing a bunch of Israelis, which is fucked up. They need that to happen because then they can be like, well, you killed us. Now we're going to go and kill 10 times the amount of people.
Yeah.
And that's justified. So I truly believe that. I think that they are using this as an opportunity. That sounds so fucking crazy to say.
Yeah.
But this is not the first time that governments and politicians have kind of basically lied to get into war. Like war is profitable. War has there's a lot of political reasons for war, which is fucked up.
Well, and there was that whole argument around the invasion from the U.S. back in when they had the...
Oh, you mean Iraq?
Yeah, when they invaded Iraq. There was
after 9/11.
Exactly. They were saying, well, actually, there's... And again, a lot of it's like conspiracy theories. We don't know for sure, but like there's some sentiment around, and the
You
U.S.
mean it was like an inside job?
Not that was an inside job, but the
Right.
conspiracy not the conspiracy.
It's not even a conspiracy.
The reason they're thinking that partially the U.S. got involved in that whole Iraq situation was because actually it positively influenced the oil and gas industry.
Absolutely, Daniel.
So, like,
I don't even think it's a question.
Yeah.
Because like after 9/11 is a great example because I think this is kind of like not like obviously it's a very different situation.
Yeah.
But I think it's like a similar thing to 9/11 in that 9/11 obviously a horrible thing happened. Terrorists took over, fucking killed so many people, which is awful, right? And then all of a sudden George Bush is like, well, now we're gonna go and attack Iraq?
Yeah.
Which later on was like, this has nothing to do. Like they were not the ones responsible. And even if it was the like Iraqi government that did it, like, because like Saddam, or what's his name? Osama bin Laden.
Yeah.
Where was he even from?
I can't remember.
Like
I should probably know this. But
I can't remember these details. But essentially, basically, what the U.S. government did was they took this horrible tragedy, this terrorist attack, and they were like, well, let's go and kill, like, I think they killed, like, I don't know, like
so many people,
like million civilians or something like this. It's something insane, guys. Don't quote me on this number, but they killed so many people over so many years. And it was all a lie. They said that they had weapons of mass destruction. Turns out they didn't.
Yeah.
And like, so this is what I'm saying. This is not the first time the U.S. government or any other governments have lied to get into war. They also said, like, I don't know the details of the Vietnam War, but there was also some lies associated with that.
Yeah.
So it's not insane, guys. It's actually like probably more logical to assume that this was, especially if there's reports saying that they knew this was going to happen.
And they didn't. Yeah.
And especially if Netanyahu has said in the past that like we need to prop up Hamas.
Yeah.
Then, you know what? If you don't like Hamas, we need to talk to Netanyahu about this.
Yeah.
And so I think that, and also this attack, right? If you think about it, like they went into full offensive mode, full like whatever, like full fucking dropping bombs everywhere.
Yeah.
Almost right away. And my thought is they have 200 innocent civilians. If you really wanted to save those civilians,
you go into
you
hostage
should.
Negotiations.
Thank you. You do not just bomb the living crap out of where your hostages potentially are.
Exactly. If La Casa de Papel taught me anything.
Oh, God.
When the hostages are in the bank, guys, if you've seen that show, Money Heist, or La Casa de Papel in Espanol.
Yes. Love it. It's such a good show.
Such a good show. Well, the first couple of seasons, I think I got a little bit sidetracked.
Yeah. I only like the first 2 seasons.
Yeah, the first 2 seasons are epic. If
Yeah.
you haven't watched it, watch it. It's a really good show. But like if you think about it, and it makes sense, right? They had a hostage situation, and actually the whole Spanish military, I'm not going to give away too much, but they came to the bank, and they were originally, and this was the whole plan and the whole purpose as to why the robbers had done this in the first place. They had actually strategically picked hostages as well,
right?
Or who was going to be at the whatever, the mint at the time,
the bank or whatever.
Yeah, it was the mint, where they print the money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so they had to strategically, because they knew that the Spanish government valued the hostages, and they weren't just going to go in there guns blazing at the risk of hurting any of the hostages. So right away they went into hostage negotiation.
Thank you. Hostage negotiation is a thing. So if your government cared about your hostages, which they should care about your hostages, then the first reaction wouldn't be, let's bomb the living crap out of everyone in Gaza. Yeah. But instead, Israel has, I think, something like 6,000 Palestinian prisoners / hostages, people would say, and they haven't gone through due process. It's very like sketchy. Okay. So they have thousands of Palestinian hostages that they could negotiate. Like, we're talking thousands versus 200. They could easily negotiate, maybe not easily, but they could definitely negotiate a hostage release situation. Yeah. But they're not doing that. Almost immediately they went into this like offensive war. And now it's like, it's literally just wiping. I really do feel like they are just trying to wipe out Gaza, and they're trying to just make more Israeli territory. I think so. And that sounds so fucking awful to say, but I truly feel like that's what's happening, because it doesn't logically make sense. Again, if the hostages are in Gaza, which most likely they are, like where else could they possibly be? Yeah. They're in Gaza. Why bomb Gaza and potentially harm your hostages? And people love, this argument, this one fucking annoys the shit out of me. People say, they've been saying this for the last however many decades, as they've killed so many civilians in Gaza. Right. They say Hamas likes to use innocent Palestinians, civilians, as human shields. Basically what they say is like they they hide under like civilian houses or like hospitals or like places like this. And again, first of all, that makes no sense to me that means, okay, so because they hide under civilian houses, your first thought is let's just
bomb the
civilian houses. And they'll say stuff like, well, we warn them in advance, you know? And so, for example, like before they bomb a hospital, they'll be like, oh, we're going to bomb this hospital 24 hours, you know, in 24 hours. And it's like, well, some people can't leave.
Yeah.
Like some people are attached to ventilators. Some people, they're sick. It's a hospital.
Yeah.
Like you can't just evacuate. You can't just tell people to like leave a hospital.
Yeah. Well, and also it makes no sense if they're going to give a notice. Like obviously if there was Hamas in that building, they're going to be gone.
Exactly. That also exactly. So it's like, and then they just like basically, essentially, they think all of Gaza is like they're just using Hamas as a human, civilians as a human shield.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, guys. Like in any other situation, like imagine we're in a school or in our community, there's a school, there's 20 students in there, and then like 4 terrorists go in and like infiltrate the school, and they're like, okay, we're gonna fucking do this terrorist activity, we're gonna do whatever in this school. The first response should never be, let's just bomb the school because there's terrorists there. What are you fucking talking about?
Yeah.
Hostage negotiation. Get the civilians out. You should do whatever you can. And it's really, what kills me is the government in Israel continuously likes to say, oh, we do whatever we can to not kill innocent civilians. Buddy, you have killed 5,000 people in Gaza in like the span of such a short period of time. It is insanity.
It's so sad. And it's, you know, the thing that's frustrating is like, I feel like this discussion has been the same ongoing discussion for 75 years.
Literally, because I listened to the one that we did like a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And this was like a different situation where basically it was like, I think, houses in East Jerusalem
were being occupied.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Palestinian houses in East Jerusalem, they were about to be quote, evicted. Essentially, they were trying to kick out these Palestinian homes to make room for Israeli occupants, which again, illegal by international law. But international law doesn't do anything when the U.S. when the U.S. basically has all the power. So essentially, they just get away with everything.
But it's like, honestly, like I think it's good that we have the UN, but and you know, some of these organizing bodies. But the issue is like, because there has been so many situations where, you know, the UN has been like, this, we don't approve of this course of action, or we don't want you guys to go and invade this country. Yeah. And like, especially in the U.S.'s situation, or some of the larger countries, they're like, well, we don't care what you say, so we're going to do it anyway.
Exactly.
What are you going to do about it?
And did you know that the U.S. has veto power? So essentially, basically when this whole thing kicked off and like, Israel is like bombing the living crap out of Gaza, right? They did this like vote to like to call a ceasefire. So being like, okay, we need to stop this madness. Yeah. So they did this vote with all these countries, and I think 2 countries like decided not to vote. I can't remember which countries they were. Everyone voted yes to ceasefire. Like, we need to ceasefire. And then the U.S., because I guess they have veto power, which I'm like, why do you even do a vote in the first place?
Exactly.
Why don't you just ask U.S., do you want to do ceasefire or no? And of course they said no. So basically, this is why I'm like, fucking Biden, man. Like, he's no better than any other Republican because he's just fully supporting this thing because it's a political win for him to have Israel there as a political ally. Yeah. And so none of these people, they act like they care about these innocent civilians. They do not care whether like a few innocent people die. They think it's just what's the term, like collateral damage or something. Yeah. So right now it's still ongoing. It's ramped up. Like, there's no, like, I think Hamas has released a few of the civilians. I don't know what's going to happen. But it's like, it's so I've seen like pictures and videos of like dead babies, dead people. Like, it is. And then like, I'm trying to live my normal life. Like, oh, like, you know, I'm going for a workout. Like,
gotta edit a video. Gotta do
like
this.
It just, and for like a few days, like, and it sounds so like fucked up. Like, it's so stupid to say this, but like for a few days I was like, oh my God, like, it was like kind of like, I'm sure a lot of people were depressed over this.
Like feeling depressed.
Yes. And the thing is, what I think is insane is that what are the options? Like, what do they hope to achieve, right? Like, I think they're trying to get Gaza again. Like, they're trying to just wipe out Gaza, and essentially, like, they're giving the option of the people, like, they can either leave through. I don't even think they could leave. I think they tried to like evacuate 1 million people from northern Gaza to southern Gaza in like 24 hours. So again, people are saying, oh, Well, they gave a warning, but it's like 24-hour warning to evacuate 1 million people that don't have proper food, electricity, water, and fuel.
Well, think about you guys. You have to realize the magnitude of a million
people, you guys.
Like that's not
possible. People have said that's not possible.
Yeah.
So they're giving like this impossible task.
Yeah.
Saying we're gonna, and also like that's like a death threat, not an evacuation order.
Where are all the 1 million people gonna go?
Exactly. Well, they're going to supposedly go to southern Gaza.
But where?
I don't know.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's not
exactly.
It's like, for example, like imagine somewhere. Let's say Edmonton got evacuated, right?
Yeah.
Edmonton has just over 1 million people.
Yeah.
Right. They're like, look, we're going to be bombing Edmonton. You need to get down to Calgary.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Right. So we get 1 million people all of a sudden flood into Calgary.
Yeah.
Well, Calgary doesn't really have much real estate available for people to rent or move into. So like, and sure, I'm sure people would open their homes and be like, spare rooms can get all the, kind of stuff. Not that
many.
But this is what I mean. Yeah. My point is there is not 1 million. We don't have capacity for another 1 million people in the city.
And we're also we're already talking about a city that is so densely populated.
Yeah.
And again, we're talking about like essentially an open air prison / concentration camp. They can't really leave. So it's not like if they came to Calgary, they can maybe go to like, I don't know, Medicine Hat or like fucking Red Deer.
Or some of the small towns.
Yeah. Because like we're not blocked, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't think we understand because we'll never understand what it's like to live in this like blocked off area that is so tiny. So yeah. So essentially they're saying like you need to leave. Otherwise we're going to bomb the living crap out of it. And there's been reports that they said, okay, take a certain route and then they like bomb that route. So like there's been people that have been killed. They're trying to evacuate on like trucks and then I don't know, right? Like it's just horrifying. And I think they finally started letting in because they had blocked off the Egypt border as well. So people were trying to get in like medical aid and water and supplies into Gaza, but then they blocked it off for like days. And then I think they finally like opened it or something like this. Essentially, it's a fucking shit show. And I don't know. It's fucking... It's terrifying. Like, we're literally watching genocide. Like they are ethnically cleansing, and make no mistake about it. This has always been like Netanyahu is far right wing government. He wants a fully like Jewish nation. Like he doesn't want. He sees Palestinians, I think, as like less than animals. Like I don't think he sees them as human, and I think that they're trying to make this a full-on like Jewish ethno-state by getting rid of the Palestinians. Yeah. And essentially, if they do end up leaving through, let's say, the Egypt border, they're not going to be able to return. Like, 100%. They can't return. Like, are you joking me? Like, you really think they're going to open up the borders again and be like, oh, welcome back home? Like, And for some of these people, like that is their home, even if it is like, bad conditions. Yeah. What else do they know? And also, a lot of these Palestinians have a lot of like, they want Palestine back. Like, they want to have their home back. And so, yeah, it's a fucking mess. It's a
disaster. And it's been a disaster for fucking 75 years.
I know. And I think it's, for 75 fucking years. Yeah. And people, like a lot of Palestinians, they can't return back home, because like Israel won't allow them. Yeah. And also since this whole thing happened, there's been like quite a few casualties, Palestinians being killed in the West Bank as well. Yeah. So it's just like, it's insane. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of like international support for Palestinians. And I think more and more people are kind of like understanding this a bit more. Yeah. And they're seeing like, I think if you think about it in like the 2000s and stuff, like we were subject to primarily, we didn't have social media. We didn't have a lot of this other stuff. So we were subject to what the news outlets were telling us. Yeah. So like, obviously if the news outlets being like, oh my God, this terrorist attack is happening, poor, Israel or whatever it might be, that's going to shape our opinion to be like, oh, that's what's happening. Whereas when we have like social media and we learn a little bit, not that all social media is good, obviously, of course, but we can start to hear like firsthand stories and we start to understand a little bit more about what is going on there. And then also if you take a step back and try not to take a side, I mean, not try not to take a side, but what I mean by taking a step back and analyze the situation and think, okay, well, there's certain things that are adding up, like you were saying, like for example, the first thing that comes to my mind, at least if there's a hostage situation, is hostage negotiation. I'm like, my first thought isn't like, it's like, for example, if someone captured my family and locked them in a house, I'm not going to bomb the house. I'm not going to be like, oh, well, they're gone now. I'm going to fucking no, I'm going to work with the hostages or the negotiate. Yeah. Work with the Hamas or work with the terrorists. Whoever has them as hostage, the hostage takers. Hostage takers. I don't know what they're called. Yeah. But anyway, I would work with them to try to get my family free. That's what that would be my number one priority before taking any violent action. Like if I feel like the negotiation's going nowhere, I can't achieve anything, then I might try to do something violent, but it would still in a way to try to save my family. Exactly.
You know, because that's what I
Right.
would really be going for. So like it doesn't add up. Like, okay, the hostages are under hostage and you're going to bomb it?
It makes no sense.
Yeah. So
it makes sense because I believe that the motives of the Israeli government and the U.S.
Right. But if, I'm meaning just like, and I get that, but I'm saying like, just take a step back and like, don't even think about
analyze
any of that
the
stuff.
situation.
Exactly. Look at the situation as it is without any, and I know it's hard to do sometimes, but like think like, if it doesn't make sense, like it's not adding up.
It's not adding up.
So,
well, what adds up is like the motives have been clear and they've been doing the thing is that they've been doing this for years, right? Like even before Hamas was even an entity, they've killed so many Palestinians. They've displaced so many Palestinians from their homes.
Yeah.
They've literally kicked out Palestinians from their homes. And Palestinians, because they don't really have an army, they don't really have anything. Like Hamas is literally all they have, and that's in Gaza.
Yeah.
So like in the West Bank, they've got like nothing. So they can't fight back. So they can't, like, no one is, vouching for them.
yeah.
So they can't do anything. So then they're just taking it. And I think what the problem is, like, this is going to end up in more, like, violence, right? Even on the Israeli side. Because it's, like, either, like, you're going to just completely get rid of the Palestinians in Gaza, or you're going to create even more, because, like, think about it. Your whole family line. I've seen dads. All his kids were killed.
Yeah.
Like I've seen people that have lost their brother. Like everyone's lost their family members, and way to radicalize somebody.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think is going to happen now? Like, because now it's like you're creating more extreme people now.
Yeah.
Because
and also you don't have anything to live for. Not that you don't have anything to live for.
No, it's true.
But like if your whole family's wiped out and that was your life.
Exactly.
And now you're like, are you fucking kidding me? You've killed my entire family now.
Yeah.
Number one, you want revenge.
Yes.
And number two, you've taken away everything that I cared about.
Yeah.
So my life now for myself becomes less valuable.
Exactly.
My own personal way I think about myself.
This is not excusing anything. It's just human nature. Like, I don't know what it's like to have my entire, like, family members wiped out.
Well, not just wiped out, murdered.
And I don't know what it's like to have my house bombed. I don't know what it's like to live in an open air prison or a concentration camp. Like, these things create violent people.
Yeah.
And so it's not a surprise that even like a organization like Hamas has even any sort of like, the fact that they even exist should not be a surprise, because when you put people into these extreme conditions, you are creating extreme people with and radicalizing them. And this is like, these things have been studied. Like when you have people in these like very fucked up situations, they will become fucked up, like more likely than not. And now it's like with this whole thing happening, it's like it's never gonna end in anything good.
Yeah.
Right. Like and now I'm just like, I don't know what's gonna happen. These fucking hostages are still like, they still have those Israeli hostages.
God
what are they gonna
damn.
do with these hostages? Like, I don't understand. Like, they need to negotiate the hostage release. Like, I don't know why people like in Israel are not, do they not care about these hostages? Like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, we'll link the episode that we did before. But you know what's interesting? So, Jordan Peterson, the guy that we talk about sometimes.
I love Jordan
He has a daughter.
Peterson.
Did we talk about Michaela Peterson, the daughter?
We have talked about her in the past.
So I don't normally like her. I mean, I don't really like dislike her. I just like don't agree with her views normally. But she actually has a podcast, and she did this like long episode where she interviewed one guy that stands up for the Israel side, and then the guy that I talked about, Norman Finkelstein, I think that's his name, who again is like has been an activist for like Palestinians for like years. Yeah. Studied this literature and everything. I don't really know what this other guy does. Yeah. But she did an entire segment when first she interviewed the Israel guy separately. And then afterwards she interviewed the pro-Palestinian guy. And it's interesting because then like she's kind of like going at it. She's like, I don't really know much about the situation. Yeah. So she's just asking questions and letting them answer. So we should link that below because then people can watch the whole thing and make up your mind. And it's interesting because I saw the comments, and normally Michaela Peterson, like I'm sure her audience is quite like conservative because she's like a conservative. I think her politics are conservative, but almost every comment was like, oh, Norman had great things to say. Like, so I think we'll leave that, and you can decide what you want to believe. But I think the evidence is very clear. Yeah. All we're talking about human rights organizations, international organizations, have, been very clear about this. They can't do anything, but they're very clear about, what's going on. Yeah. So anyways, wow.
God damn.
That's not an easy topic to talk about, Daniel.
No.
Because we're going to piss off people no matter what.
We are.
But I'm sorry that I need to be, the thing is, we need to be on the right side of history. And we always wonder, in a situation we hear about these tragic things happening, fucking Holocaust and fucking horrible things happening. And we're thinking how do people let this happen?
Exactly.
Slavery in the United States.
And I think it's a good point, Rose, because when we're gone and our podcast is still out there floating in the ether, someone can find this episode and be like, oh, you know what? As part of a history class or something, maybe some kids doing a fucking study, and they're like, oh God. I found there were people speaking about this on the other side, So I think actually it's a good thing. It's a good point to make.
Well, I think it's important to I don't know. And
if you send me, I'll look up those, or if you can send me those.
I'll send you the video. I think I actually I need to re-listen to it because I was kind of half listening to it.
Yeah.
But I need to re-listen to the whole thing, and I will listen to even the Israel guy.
Yeah.
Although I think he's spewing a lot of garbage, but I will listen to it.
Yeah.
And I will try to listen to it with an open mind. And the thing is, and I think Norman Guy, he makes a few very good points. One of the points being that we need to look at, like he said, like I said before, not look at what Israel is saying and what Palestine is saying, and look at what the organizations are saying, the third party organizations.
Yeah.
And if you look at that, then it's very clear.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about U.S. organizations. We're talking about third party human rights organizations.
Yeah.
And it's very clear what's going on. And a lot of what some people have been sending me people sending me all of this videos made by the IDF being the Israel Defense Force, aka the Israeli military.
Yeah.
And I'm they're working Israeli military is working overtime to make themselves look however way they want.
They're curating an image.
Yeah, they're curating propaganda. They're making propaganda, and people have been sending me Israel propaganda, and I don't want to look at it. I don't want to see it because I'm sorry. If there's a company, right, and I'm thinking this company is doing shady shit, and I'm saying this company is doing shady shit, are you going to send me marketing material made by that company?
No. It's you know what it just made me think of, which is a really bad situation. But do you remember that movie, Aaron Brockovich?
Yes.
So do you remember that everyone was getting sick?
Yes.
In that area.
Is this about is it Flint? No.
I can't remember the
right.
Anyway, it was
about water and
a water treatment facility.
Right.
Yeah. And they were arguing that, so what had happened was a bunch of people were getting sick in this town, and the company, the organization or whatever
that was responsible
was providing doctors for these people.
Right.
So that the doctors actually, even though they were developing all these crazy symptoms and all this shit, all linked to the really bad chemicals in the water.
Yeah.
They had doctors going to them, and the doctors were saying, hey, everything's all right. It's not the water.
Right.
It's everything but the water.
Exactly.
And it's again, you're not going to...
That's called a conflict of interest.
Exactly. And you're not going to believe if some organization... It's if one side or the other paid an organization to do a report on this area... It's going to be biased. It's going to be one side bias. So you do have to look at those third parties that are outside of this.
Exactly.
For them as much as they can be and listen to what they're having to say. And we did have some other stories. But
we do. Do we have time? Oh my God. Sorry. I took up all the time.
No, it's fine.
Let's discuss one big story.
Okay. We'll do one.
Or yeah. Sorry guys. I took up all that time. I did not mean to. But we also talked about voting rights and crazy stuff. Why don't we do the one with the that one. I want to talk about that one. I want to know the details of this. Okay. So breaking news, Baltimore. Yeah. So I guess there was a group of 3 people called Harlem Park 3.
So again, I don't want to go too much into the because I don't really know what
the exact situation
as to why they were convicted, right? Anyway, I'll talk.
Google,
because I don't know too much about what went on with the Harlem Park 3. I think they were confused. I think that ultimately it was some kind of murder charge.
Okay.
Yeah, and there was these 3 individuals.
Let me look it up. Yeah. I found it right here. Okay. So Harlem Park 3, Alfred Chestnut, Andrew Stewart, and Ransom Watkins. Mm-hmm. So recently they were exonerated.
Yes.
But they've each spent 36 years in prison for the 1983 murder of 14-year-old DeWitt Duckett. Mm-hmm. So I guess they were wrongfully convicted. And of course it was 3 black men. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. And there was some there was some obviously some underlying racism and
of course,
reason as to why they were convicted.
Right. So they were, okay, so let me read this quickly. So the 3 men that were teenagers at the time were convicted of the murder, who was shot and killed. So this person that got murdered was shot and killed in Harlem Park Junior High School by someone who wanted to steal his jacket. They were convicted based on the testimony of 4 teenage witnesses who have now recanted, saying they were pressured by police to change their initial truthful stories that one person committed the crime instead identify 3 boys.
So, long story short, well, actually, this is a long story that they were stuck in prison for 36 years, guys.
Since they were teenagers, all their life just completely gone.
It says here in this article, it's like they went into prison as teenagers and they're coming out as young grandfathers.
Oh my God.
Like, that's insane.
That's longer than our lifetime.
Longer than we've been alive.
Can you imagine?
They've been in prison. So, and add another 15, 16 years on our age.
Why did it take so long?
These things, I feel like they have a tendency to drag on. Once people are in the prison system, you got to go through appeal process. You got to do all this other stuff.
God.
So I'm sure that
because this is similar to the Central Park 5,
yes,
which is another case of 5 black. I think there were 4 black and 1 like Latino or something. And they were like convicted and spent years in prison.
So did you read or did you see how much they're getting paid out?
No, tell me.
Okay. So they're getting paid out from the city, I guess, or from the government.
From the government, as like what was it called? Retribution? No, what's the term?
Restitution.
Restitution?
Actually, I don't know what it's called. Like
whatever term it is to basically like make right,
whole, basically.
Make it better, even though nothing's gonna make it better.
Yeah.
But
so 36 years in prison. And they are getting a payout of $48 million.
Each or?
Between the 3 of them.
Between the 3.
Yeah, that was my understanding.
I mean, I don't think there's any number that is enough. 36 years.
Well, and think about, this article does talk about it as well, the toll on their physical and mental health.
Yes, exactly. I think there should be more for sure. Yeah. I mean, no number is going to make it better. I think they're traumatized. No, it says
$48 million settlement. So that's the whole thing.
Right. Settlement.
So that's the total, which obviously would have to get divided between the 3 of them.
Right. So it's not enough.
Yeah.
So that would be what? 48 divided by 3, Daniel.
God damn. It would be like, can you do it on your phone?
I mean,
it's going to be more than.
It would be less than 20 each.
Yeah. So it's like
like 15-ish?
Yeah.
No?
15, 30. Yeah. It would be like 15 point something.
Divided by 48 divided by 3. Yeah, it'd be 16.
Oh yeah, 16. Oh my
million dollars. Now, I mean, fucking hell! In this day and age, 16 million, that's nothing.
It's not a lot of money. I mean, it is in the grand scheme.
I mean, what is that per year? Okay, 16 million divided by 36 years per person. That's what is this? Hold on.
That would be 440,000 per year.
Divided by 36. Yeah. So about $500,000 a year. Not enough.
No. This is something like, think about it. Think about the life experience you have, your freedom. Like,
all your youth.
Exactly. All your youth gone. All of your experiences, your mental health, everything. And you get, $500,000. Some people might be like, yeah, that's a shitload of money. But in the grand scheme of things, like in your life, what you've been robbed of, that doesn't seem that high.
Exactly.
I feel like it should be more.
I think so too. But I don't think any number will be enough.
I know, and we're gonna leave this question with you guys.
What do you guys think?
This is our final story. So we want you guys to tell us in the comment section below, or just like let us know, what do you guys think would justify a settlement? What do you think is the number for each year or the whole time of what individuals that are wrongly accused should get? Is there a number?
I don't think there's any number.
No. Because it's like, you know what? Yeah, they each get $16 million, but like they're old now.
Exactly. The thing
is, older.
Time is the only thing that we can't get back.
Yes.
Right? And it's like, once those years are gone, they are gone.
You never get them back. You can't all of a sudden become youthful again.
Exactly. And if we could, that would be great, but we can't. So
if only there was like a thing where we could actually
go back in time.
Because then the government could be like, pay for that and reverse the aging.
Well,
like,
have you heard of this guy that's like, he's trying to be really young? Did we talk about him?
I don't know if we talked fully about him, but there's that guy.
We need to talk about him on an episode.
So much money because isn't he like injecting himself with like plasma?
He's insane. Like he he basically, so I can't remember how old he is. I think he's like 40 something.
Yeah.
And I guess he was like really rich. So I guess he, I don't know, was like working in the tech industry or something. And then he became like super rich because I think he sold a company and like you can make like, he made like hundreds of millions of dollars, became super rich. And then he decided to embark on this like journey of like being extremely healthy, like, you know. So he follows this like very rigid routine. He basically eats the same thing every day, and he does follow a vegan diet. Interesting.
So apparently that will elongate your life, guys.
But he eats the same thing every day, and it like,
that's crazy.
I'm sorry, but I've seen kind of like what he eats. It does not sound fun. Like none of it sounds fun. Like maybe for one meal, but it's like none of it looks that great. It looks healthy. But I'm like, you know, and you know, he takes like 100-something supplements a day, like sleeps a specific amount of time, works out a specific amount of time, and it's just.
But he also does more than that too, though. I think he also like
he does a lot
injects
of
a lot of like things into it. Like he gets like youthful blood, or I can't remember what it was. But like some kind of plasma,
his son's blood or something
like this. He does like he goes over and above, right? Anyway,
he says he does it as like a. It's interesting because like he seems to like want to do it as like almost like a public
experiment,
kind of, because he puts out like his routine online, and he says he's not just doing it for his own benefit, but he's kind of like wanting to figure out like how do we elongate life or whatever. So it's kind of interesting.
But the interesting thing too, the concept of aging. I was reading this article, and I think we might have talked about this in the podcast too. The concept of aging and how there was this article I was reading, and essentially it's a really interesting concept because if you think about the human body, like our cells are regenerating all the time, right? So you would think like a regeneration, but there is a component within the cell that causes it every time it regenerates to be like a little bit like it slowly weakens over time. And that essentially is what causes us to kind of like age. So that's part of it.
So if you alter that component.
Exactly. If we can identify, as scientists can identify what that specific component is, and I think they have identified it, but it's how to stop it.
Right.
Then we could possibly live forever. But that's not necessarily a good thing. Well, maybe not live forever, but like extend life a lot.
Interesting.
And it's like, but it's like, you know what? Part of the beauty of life
is that
it's
immortal.
finite. Exactly, because as soon as you saw all those shows like when vampires are like immortal and stuff, you know,
right?
They like end up getting bored, and like it's like nothing is entertaining to them anymore. But anyway,
oh goddamn, that's me. Don't be smoking weed tonight, Daniel.
I won't be. But we could talk about this forever. But
we really could. We should do a deep dive into this
aging.
On aging, maybe guys. What do you guys want this?
Goddamn,
we could have a discussion.
And on that positive note. Guys.
Oh God, guys, stay in a positive place.
Enjoy your week. Hopefully Rose hasn't depressed you too much.
I know. I'm so sorry. We'll link the sources below, and Yeah.
And if you aren't already, guys, we forgot to mention at the beginning of the podcast, but check out our Patreon, patreon.com/the SaVeg podcast. There's a lot of exclusive content on there. We do an exclusive episode every single month. And also you get all the content on there ad free. You get it before everybody else. It comes out a week before everyone else. And there's kind of a nice little community in there that you can engage with and things like that. So really, really fun space. If you are watching us on YouTube, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, comment, show us some love in the comment section below. And if you're following us or if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, don't forget to hit that follow, and that way you get updated as soon as there's publicly available episodes. Yeah.
Yeet.
All right. See you guys next week.
All right. Bye.
Bye.